Hi everyone! I heard you had so much fun with Elsa reading Ruby the Red Fairy, so today we're gonna read Amber the Orange Fairy. Orange like my hair! Amber the Orange Fairy is the second book in the Rainbow Fairy series by Daisy Meadows. Chapter 1. A Very Unusual Shell. What a lovely day, Rachel Walker shouted, staring up at the blue sky. She and her friend Kirsty Tate were running along Rainspell Island's yellow, sandy beach. Their parents walked a little way behind them. "It's a magical day," Kirsty added. The two friends smiled at each other. Rachel and Kirsty had come to Rainspell Island for their holidays. They had soon found out that it really was a magical place. As they ran, they passed rock pools that shone like jewels in the sunshine. Rachel spotted a little splash in one of the ponds. "There's something in there, Kirsty," she pointed. "Let's go and look." The girls jogged over to the pool and crouched down to see. Kirsty's heart thumped as she gazed into the crystal-clear water. "What is it?" she asked. Suddenly, the water rippled. A little brown crab scuttled sideways across the sandy bottom and vanished under a rock. Kirsty felt disappointed. "I thought it might be another rainbow fairy," she said. "So did I," Rachel sighed. "Never mind. We'll keep on looking." "Of course we will," Kirsty agreed. Then she put her finger to her lips as their parents came up behind them. Shh! Kirsty and Rachel had a big secret. They were helping to find the rainbow fairies. Thanks to Jack Frost's wicked spell, the fairies were lost on Rainspell Island. And until they were all found, there would be no color in fairyland. Rachel looked at the shimmering blue sea. "Shall we have a swim?" she asked. But Kirsty wasn't listening. She was shading her eyes with her hand and looking further along the beach. "Over there, Rachel, by those rocks," she said. Then Rachel could see it too, something winking and sparkling in the sunshine. "Wait for me," she called, as Kirsty hurried over there. When they saw what it was, the two friends sighed in disappointment. "It's just the wrapper from a chocolate bar," Rachel said sadly. She bent down and picked up the shiny purple foil. Kirsty thought for a moment. "Do you remember what the Fairy Queen said?" she asked. "Yes," Rachel nodded. "Let the magic come to you," she said. "You're right, Kirsty. We should just enjoy our holiday and wait for magic to happen. After all, that's how we found Ruby in the pot at the end of the rainbow, isn't it?" She put down her beach bag on the sand. "Come on, I'll race you to the sea." They rushed into the water. The sea was cold and salty, but the sun felt warm on their backs. They waved at their parents, sitting on the sand, and splashed about in the waves until they got goosebumps. "Ow!" Kirsty gasped as they paddled out of the water. "I just stood on something sharp." "It might have been a shell," said Rachel. "There are lots of them around here." She picked up a pale pink one and showed it to Kirsty. "Let's see how many we can find," Kirsty said. The two girls walked along the beach looking for shells. They found long, thin blue shells and tiny, round, white shells. There's some shells there. Soon their hands were full. They walked right round the curve of the bay. Rachel looked over her shoulder, and a sudden gust of wind whipped her hair across her face. "Look how far we come," she said. Kirsty stopped. The wind tugged at her t-shirt and made goosebumps on her arms. "It's getting cold now," she said. "Should we go back?" "Yes, it must be nearly tea time," said Rachel. The two girls began to walk back along the beach. They'd only gone a few steps when the wind suddenly dropped again. "That's funny," said Kirsty. "It's not windy here." They looked back and saw little swirls of sand being blown in the wind where they'd just been. "Oh," said Rachel, and the two friends looked at each other with excitement. "It's magic," Kirsty whispered. "It has to be." They walked back, and the breeze swirled around their legs again. Then the cold sand at their feet began to drift gently to one side, as if invisible hands were pushing it that way. A large scallop shell appeared, much bigger than the other shells on the beach. It was pearly white, with soft orange streaks, and it was tightly closed. Quickly, the girls knelt down on the sand, spilling the shells out of their hands. Kirsty was just about to pick up the scallop shell when Rachel put out her hand. "Listen," she whispered. They both listened hard. There it was again. Inside the shell, a tiny silvery voice hummed softly. Chapter 2. The Magic Feather. Very carefully, Rachel picked up the shell. It felt warm and smooth. The humming stopped at once. "I mustn't be scared," said the tiny voice. "I have to be brave. Help will come very soon." Kirsty put her face close to the shell. "Hello?" she whispered. "Is there a fairy in there?" "Yes," cried the voice. "I'm Amber the Orange Fairy. Can you get me out of here?" "Of course we will," Kirsty promised. "My name is Kirsty, and my friend Rachel is here too." She looked at Rachel, her eyes shining. "We've found another rainbow fairy." "Quick," Rachel said. "Let's get the shell open." She took hold of the scallop shell and tried to pull the two halves apart. Nothing happened. "Try again," said Kirsty. She and Rachel each grasped one half of the shell and tugged, but the shell stayed tightly shut. "What's happening?" Amber called. She sounded worried. "We can't open the shell," Kirsty said, "but we'll think of something." She turned to Rachel. "If we find a piece of driftwood, maybe we can use it to open the shell." Rachel glanced around at the beach. "I can't see any driftwood," she said. "We could try tapping the shell with a rock." "But that might hurt Amber," Kirsty pointed out. Suddenly, Rachel remembered something. "What about the magic bags the Fairy Queen gave us?" she said. "Of course!" Kirsty cried. She put her face close to the shell again. "Amber, we are going to look in our magic bag," she said. "Okay, but please hurry," Amber called. Rachel opened her bag. Oopsies. Rachel opened her beach bag. The two magic bags were hidden under the towel. One of the bags was glowing with a golden light. Carefully, Rachel pulled it out. "Look," she whispered to Kirsty. "This one's all lit up." "Open it quick," Kirsty whispered back. As Rachel undid the bag, a fountain of glittering sparks flew out. "What's inside?" Kirsty asked, her eyes wide. Rachel slid her hand into the bag. She could feel something light and soft. She pulled it out, scattering sparkles everywhere. It was a shimmering golden feather. Kirsty and Rachel stared at the feather. "It's really pretty," said Kirsty, "but what are we going to do with it?" "I don't know," Rachel replied. She tried to use the feather to push the two halves of the shell apart, but the feather just curled in her hand. "Maybe we should ask Amber." "Amber, we've looked in the magic bags," Kirsty said, "and we found a feather." "Oh, good," said Amber happily from inside the shell. "But we don't know what to do with it," Rachel added. Amber laughed. It sounded like the tinkle of a tiny bell. "You tickle the shell, of course," she said. "Do you think that'll work?" Rachel said to Kirsty. "Let's give it a try," Kirsty said. Rachel began to tickle the shell with the feather. At first, nothing happened. Then they heard a soft, gritty chuckle. Then another. Then another. Slowly, the two halves of the shell began to open. "It's working," Kirsty gasped. "Keep tickling, Rachel." The shell was laughing harder now. The two halves opened wider. Who's that? And there, sitting inside the smooth peach-colored shell, was Amber, the Orange Fairy. Chapter 3. A Stranger in the Pot. "I'm free!" Amber cried joyfully. She shot out of the shell and up into the air, her wings fluttering in a rainbow-colored blur. Orange fairy dust floated around Kirsty and Rachel. It turned into orange bubbles as it fell. One of the bubbles landed on Rachel's arm and burst with a tiny pop. "The bubbles smelled like oranges," Rachel smiled. Amber spun through the sky, turning cartwheels one after the other. "Thank you," she called. Then she swooped down towards Rachel and Kirsty. She wore a tiny orange catsuit and long boots. Her flame-colored hair was held high in a ponytail tied with a band of peach blossoms. In her hand was an orange wand tipped with gold. There she is. "I'm so glad you found me," Amber shouted. She landed on Rachel's shoulder, then cartwheeled lightly across to Kirsty's. "But who are you? And where are my rainbow sisters? And what's happening in Fairyland? How am I going to get back there?" Kirsty and Rachel couldn't get a word in. Suddenly, Amber stopped. She floated down and landed softly on Rachel's hand. "I'm sorry," she said with a smile, "but I haven't had anyone to talk to. I've been shut up in this shell ever since Jack Frost's spell banished us from Fairyland. How did you know where to find me?" "Kirsty and I promised your sister Ruby that we would look for all the rainbow fairies," Rachel told her. "Ruby?" Amber's face lit up. She spun round on Rachel's hand. "You found Ruby?" "Yes, she's quite safe," Rachel said. "She's in the pot at the end of the rainbow." Amber did a joyful black flip. "Please take me back to her," she begged. "I'll ask our parents if we can go for a walk," Kirsty added, and she ran off across the beach. "Do you know what's happening in Fairyland?" Amber asked Rachel. Rachel nodded. She and Kirsty had flown with Ruby to Fairyland. Ruby had shrunk them down to fairy size and given them fairy wings. "King Oberon and Queen Titiana miss you very much," Rachel told Amber. "With no color, Fairyland is a sad place." Kirsty was hurrying back towards them. "Mom said we can go for a walk," she panted. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go," Amber called. She flew up and did a somersault mid-air. Rachel pulled their shorts, t-shirts, and trainers out of her beach bags, and both girls put them on. "Rachel, could you bring my shell?" Amber asked. Rachel looked surprised. "Yes, if you want." Amber nodded. "It's really comfy," she explained. "It will make a lovely bed for me and my sisters." Rachel put the shell in her bag, and they set off, with Amber sitting cross-legged on Kirsty's shoulder. "My wings are a bit stiff after being in the shell," she told them. "I don't think I can fly very far yet." The girls followed the path to the clearing in the wood where the pot at the end of the rainbow was hidden. "Here we are," said Rachel. "The pot is over there." She stopped. The pot was where they left it under the big weeping willow tree, but climbing out of it was a big green frog. "Oh no!" Rachel gasped. She and Kirsty stared at the frog in horror. Where was Ruby? Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to come back tomorrow if you want to hear the end of the story. Bye!